the first thing I heard in the ballroom was my sister lying. Not loudly. Chloe never needed volume. She'd spent her whole life learning how to make a lie sound like gratitude. 500 people sat beneath crystal chandeliers at the Vanguard Succession Gala, while Julian Vale stood at the podium in a black tuxedo, one hand resting on the polished edge of the stage. Behind him, a screen taller than my childhood home displayed his name in gold. Julian Violet Carmen and CEO, the room applauded. Chloe stood 3 feet away in a white silk gown. My mother had always said white made her look innocent. It still did, that was the problem. Julian smiled toward the audience. Before I say anything about the future of Vanguard, I need to thank the person who gave me one. Chloe lowered her eyes. Perfect timing, perfect humility, perfect fraud. 5 years earlier, Julian had been trapped in a burning charity venue, while temporarily blind from a medical condition that had taken his vision for several months. He had not seen the woman who dragged him through smoke. He had only remembered pieces, a hand on his wrist, a wool jacket, the scent of cheap lavender soap, a voice coughing, "Keep moving." Chloe had claimed all of it. Now Julian reached her hand. My wife carried me out of a building that was collapsing around us. Applause rolled through the ballroom. I stood near the rear production booth, wearing a high-collared black suit. No mask. Not anymore. The scar along the left side of my jaw was visible if the light hit me correctly. Most people in that room knew me as Nora Vance. Chief Operating Officer, the woman who fixed supply chain failures before breakfast and terrified vendors by asking simple questions they could not answer. Julian's right hand. Nobody knew I had been born Nora Hale. Nobody except 3 attorneys, 1 digital forensics team, and the federal investigators waiting 2 floors below. Chloe touched Julian's chest. I would do it again. I almost laughed. She had done nothing the first time. That was about to become difficult to maintain. Julian looked toward me. Nora. The microphone carried my name across the room. I stepped out of the shadows. He smiled. "Come up here." Chloe's smile tightened. She had never liked how often he said my name. I walked toward the stage. Every step pulled against old scar tissue in my shoulder. 5 years. 3 surgeries. Too many physical therapy sessions to count. And still, when weather changed, fire lived in my arm. I stopped beside Julian. He handed me a microphone. "Tell them what you told the board this morning." I looked at Chloe. She lifted her chin. I looked at Julian. "No." He blinked. "No." He blinked. "No, not that." I handed the microphone back, then reached into my jacket and touched the tablet tucked beneath my arm. The room darkened. The giant screen behind us went black. Julian turned. What? Then grainy security footage appeared. Timestamp. West Corridor. Charity Gala. 5 years earlier. Smoke pouring across the camera. People running. A woman in a white dress came into frame. Chloe. She stopped. Looked toward the burning ballroom. Then turned and ran the other direction. The crowd changed. Not shocked yet. Confused. Chloe's face emptied. Turn that off. Nobody moved. A second figure appeared in the footage. Me, younger. No scars yet. Dark wool jacket. I disappeared into smoke. Seconds later, I came back dragging Julian beneath his arms while part of the ceiling fell behind us. The camera shook. A burning beam struck my shoulder. I collapsed. Got up. Kept dragging him. The room went silent. Julian stared at the screen. Then at me. Then back at the screen. Chloe whispered, "No." My father stood from a table near the front. "Nora, what the hell is this?" I looked at him. He still didn't recognize what was about to happen. That was almost impressive. My mother did. Evelyn Hale's hand flew to her mouth. She looked at my scar, then at the jacket in the footage, then at me. "Nora." I opened the collar of my suit slightly, enough to expose the heavy burn line running from my neck toward my shoulder. Julian stared. His face lost color. He stepped closer. The room disappeared around us for a second. His eyes moved over the scar. Then something else happened. He breathed in. Lavender. The same soap I had used since the day my grandmother first bought it for me at 12 years old. Julian's mouth opened. "You!" Chloe grabbed his sleeve. "Julian." He pulled away from her. I looked at the screen. Another file loaded. Not fire footage. Messages, my father's number. My mother's. A hired contractor. a plan involving a small controlled incident in the West Wing, a plan that had never been meant to become the inferno that actually erupted, and one line that froze the room. "Make sure Chloe is the one who finds him." Julian turned toward my parents. "What is this?" my father shouted. "Fabricated." I touched the tablet again. A digital certification appeared. Forensic recovery, device identifiers, attorney verification, evidence custody, not a leak, and not a rumor. Evidence. Chloe looked at me for the first time in our lives. She looked exactly like what she was. Afraid. I took the microphone back from Julian. My voice came out quieter than his. "I know everybody wants the ending." No one moved. But this started in a hospital room. I looked at my parents, with my father leaning over my bed and telling me that if I said one word, I paused, my grandmother would lose the machine keeping her alive. My mother's eyes filled. My father stared at me with pure hate. 5 years earlier, that look could stop my breathing. Now it was only a face. I handed the microphone back, because if I was going to tell this story correctly, I needed to go back to the part where I still believed family meant protection. Before the fire, I was 22 years old and invisible in my own house. Not literally, that would have been easier. Invisible people are left alone. I was useful. Useful is different. Useful means everybody sees you when something needs doing. My parents owned Hale Logistics, a mid-sized freight and warehouse company that supplied regional manufacturers. They liked to call themselves entrepreneurs. What they really were was ambitious. Constantly. Every dinner became strategy. Every wedding became networking. Every charity gala became a chance to stand next to richer people. My younger sister Chloe loved it. It was beautiful and the specific way our mother considered an investment. Tall. Perfect smile. Never sweated. Never had a bad photograph. At 18, Chloe could walk into a room and make people assume she belonged there. I could walk into the same room carrying the event schedule, repair the broken registration system, fix the caterer's delivery problem, and leave without anybody remembering what dress I wore. My father called that practical. My mother called it being built differently. Grandma Margaret called it exploitation. She lived with us because of severe chronic lung disease. Her room was downstairs near the garden. There were oxygen tanks, monitoring equipment, a ventilatory support machine she used at night, and whenever her breathing worsened, my parents complained about the cost constantly. Not in front of her, in front of me. Private nursing isn't cheap. Medication went up again. Your grandmother is burning cash. I hated them for that. Our grandma knew. She knew everything. One night after my father complained outside her door, she looked at me and said, "Never trust a person who puts a $sign next to a human being." I smiled. "Then you don't trust Dad?" "I've met your father." I laughed. She coughed, and she squeezed my hand. "You are allowed to want a life, Nora. I have one." "No." She looked toward the hallway. "You have a function." That sentence stayed. I worked for Hale Logistics because my father insisted, not as an executive. That would have given me title and leverage. I handled procurement problems, vendor disputes, internal reporting, and everything else that made Chloe's community relations director job look effortless. She attended lunches. I fixed contracts. She smiled beside our parents in magazines. I rebuilt a broken routing model at 2 a.m. When asked for a promotion, my father said, "Your sister needs visibility." I stared at him. "What does that have to do with my promotion?" "Don't start. I run half the operations. You assist. I solve things nobody else can solve." My mother looked up from her phone. "Why do you always need credit?" The cruelty of that question was its timing. 3 weeks later, they took my courage too. The Vanguard charity event was the biggest invitation my parents had ever received. Julian Vare attended because his family foundation funded vision research. At the time, a rare inflammatory condition had left him temporarily unable to see more than light and shadow. Doctors expected recovery. But for several months he used a cane and a security escort. My parents saw opportunity. I didn't know how much opportunity, and didn't know how much opportunity until years later. That night the event took place inside a converted historical exhibition hall. Stone walls, old timber, temporary stages, too many candles because rich people think fire looks elegant until fire stops behaving. I wore a dark wool jacket over a simple black dress. Chloe wore white. Of course. Grandma had been sick all afternoon. I almost stayed home, but she insisted I go. You'll resent me. I won't. You will. Grandma. She pointed one finger. Boo. So I did. The fire started shortly after 9. At first, nobody understood. A smell, then smoke, and the waiter shouted. People moved toward the main exit. A security alarm triggered late, too late. Smoke pushed across the ceiling. Somebody yelled that the west corridor was blocked. I looked for Chloe. Gone. My parents, too. Then I had a man shouting Julian's name. His security escort had been separated from him during the panic. I saw him near the center ballroom, one hand against a column, blind, disoriented. A burning, decorative panel had fallen across the nearest exit. People were running around him, not toward him. Around, I don't remember deciding. I remember moving. Smoke hit my lungs, my eyes burned. Julian, he turned toward my voice. Whom'd take my wrist? A beam crashed somewhere behind us. He flinched. I can't see. I know. I grabbed his hand. Keep moving. We made it 10 feet, and part of the ceiling came down. Heat tore across my left side. Pain arrived white. I screamed. Julian fell. My shoulder stopped working correctly. For 1 second I thought, that's it. Then Grandma's voice came into my head. You are allowed to want a life. I got up. I pulled Julian by the jacket, then under the arms, then over my back when he could stand enough to help. I don't know how. Adrenaline is terrible bookkeeping. It spends everything you have and sends the bill later. We reached the service corridor. A camera caught us. I didn't know. Outside, cold air hit my face. I got him onto the pavement. Someone shouted for medics. Julian grabbed my wrist. Your name, I tried to answer. Smoke had shredded my throat. Nora. He didn't hear. Or maybe he did. Then I collapsed. I woke 3 days later in a burn ward. My face was wrapped. My shoulder immobilized. My left arm felt like it belonged to somebody else. Every breath scraped. A nurse was adjusting a line. I tried to speak. She leaned closer. You're safe? I wasn't. A television mounted high on the wall showed a press conference. Julian Vale. Bandages near one temple. Dark glasses. Alive. Beside him stood Chloe. White dress. Same one from the fire. Pristine now. Though my mother had probably dry cleaned the soot out of history. A reporter asked, Mr. Vale, do you remember who saved you? Julian smiled toward Chloe. Not her face. He reached for her hand, but I remember her voice. Chloe lowered her eyes. I just did what anyone would have done. My heart stopped. Not literally. It felt that way. I tried to sit. Pain exploded through my shoulder. The nurse stopped me. No, no, no. I pointed at the television. She. My voice barely existed. That's the nurse. Couldn't understand. Chloe continued. I heard him calling for help. Lie. I went back. Lie. I couldn't leave him. Lie. Julian squeezed her hand. My stomach turned. I reached for the call button. The door opened first. My parents walked in. My father closed it. My mother locked it. That sound changed everything. I stared. Dad looked at the television. Then me. You saw. I nodded. My eyes filled. He stepped closer. Good. I thought the medication had made me misunderstand. Good. I pointed toward the screen. Tell. He leaned down. No. I stared. My mother moved to the foot of the bed. Chloe has a real opportunity now. My chest tightened. I tried again. I tayed. Dad put one hand over my good wrist. Listen carefully. His grip tightened. You are going to recover. I blinked. You are going to keep quiet. My breathing changed. And if you don't, he looked at my mother. She looked away. He lowered his voice. Your grandmother loses private care. My whole body went cold. I tried to pull away. A pain ripped through my shoulder. He tightened his grip harder. I will move her to the cheapest facility I can find. Tears ran into the bandages. She needs respiratory support. I could barely form the words. I know. That was the cruelty. He knew. You say one word to police, press, Julian, anyone. He leaned until I could smell his coffee. And Grandma Margaret loses the machine that keeps her breathing. My mother whispered, Don't make this harder. I looked at her. She had tears in her eyes. I hated those tears more than Dad's threat. They let her pretend she was suffering too. Why? My voice broke. She touched the blanket. This changes Chloe's life. I stared, and mine, silence. There was the answer. My life had already been spent. Chloe visited that afternoon. Not alone. A makeup artist came first, then a stylist. Then Chloe walked in carrying flowers. She closed the door behind her. For several seconds we stared at each other. She looked at my bandages, then at the television. "I'm sorry," I almost laughed. "For what?" The words came rough. "For everything. Tell him." She shook her head. "Tell Julian. Nora, tell him." Her eyes hardened. "I can't. You can. You don't understand." I stared. She whispered, "He needs me." I laughed then, painfully. "He doesn't even know you. He thinks he does." That sentence told me more than any confession. She stepped closer. "Mom says Grandma gets the best care if you cooperate." My stomach turned. "You knew." She looked away. "You knew they threatened her." "Don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" She started crying. "Do you think I wanted this?" I looked at her white dress, at her perfect skin, at the flowers, at her perfect skin, at the flowers, at my burned arm. "Yes." She flinched. Then she said, "You never wanted attention anyway." I stopped breathing. Some sentences are so cruel they become clean. No confusion. No excuse. She left. I stayed silent. For Grandma, that was the part nobody understood later. People asked why I didn't tell Julian, why I didn't go public, why I let Chloe build a marriage from my scars. Because love can be used as a hostage. My grandmother was alive. That was enough. My parents moved me out of the private hospital before Julian's team could ask too many questions. They paid cash for a smaller rehabilitation clinic, then discharged me early. I spent the next year in a rundown apartment on the edge of the city. No private nurse, no proper scar therapy, no reconstructive care beyond what basic charity programs covered. Father sent just enough money for rent. My mother sent messages about Grandma's condition. "Stable today, oxygen needs higher, new medication." Every update was a leash. If I complained, the update stopped. If I asked to visit, Dad said, "Too risky." Risky for who? He never answered. I worked remotely for small logistics contractors because I could not return to Hale Logistics without seeing Chloe's face everywhere. My shoulder healed badly. The burn scars tightened. I wore scarves. Not because I was ashamed. Because strangers stared. There is a difference. Chloe married Julian 11 months after the fire. The wedding streamed online. I watched 3 minutes. That was all I could tolerate. Grandma called me that night. Blaze was thin through the phone. "You watched a little." "Nora, I'm fine. Don't lie to an old woman. We have less time for nonsense." I laughed. And cried. She heard, "Come see me." "I can't." "Why?" I closed my eyes. "Because if I tell the truth, that can hurt you." Instead I said, "Work." She was quiet. "Then your father is using me for something." My eyes opened. "What?" "I'm old, not stupid." "Grandma, are you in trouble?" I couldn't answer. "Grandma, are you in trouble?" I couldn't answer. That was answer enough. She exhaled. "Nora, I'm okay." "No, please, tell me." I started crying, couldn't stop, but I still didn't tell her. That remains one of my regrets, not because she could have fixed it, because she deserved the dignity of knowing what had been done in her name. 2 years after the fire, a nurse from a clinic I didn't recognize called me. "Are you Nora Hale?" "Yes." "I'm sorry, your grandmother listed you as emergency contact. My body went cold." "What happened?" "Her respiratory condition worsened overnight." "Which hospital?" There was a pause. "Greenfield Extended Care." I had never heard of it. "Why is she there?" "I never heard of it. Why is she there?" Another pause. Her previous private care arrangement ended several months ago. I stood so fast my chair hit the wall. "What?" The nurse continued carefully. Her family transferred her." "When?" "6 months ago." My hand started shaking. My parents had not told me. They had kept sending updates. "Stable. New medication. Doing okay." All while moving her into cheaper care. "Can I speak to her?" Silence. "When he's weakened." "I'm sorry. No, she passed early this morning." "No." "She passed early this morning." "No, Miss Hale." I dropped the phone. The room made no sound. Then every lie my parents had used for 2 years collapsed at once. Grandma was gone, the hostage was dead, and I had spent 2 years obeying people who had already stopped paying the ransom. At the funeral, my parents did not come. Chloe sent flowers, white lilies. I threw them in the trash. The service was small, 6 people. A nurse, 2 women from Grandma's old church, me. I sat beside the coffin until everyone left. No dramatic vow, no revenge speech, just grief. Eventually, I put one hand on the wood. I'm sorry. That was all. Outside, rain had started. I walked 3 blocks before realizing I had nowhere I needed to be. That feeling was new. No grandma to protect, no family worth obeying, no employer, no husband, no reason to preserve peace. Freedom arrived looking exactly like loss. I used the little money I had saved to buy 1 good suit. Then I applied to Vanguard. Not because Julian was there, at least that's what I told myself. The job was junior financial analyst. Entry level, below my actual experience, perfect. I changed my professional name, the Vance. Vance had been Grandma Margaret's maiden name. I wanted one thing from my family history that belonged to someone decent. The interview lasted 23 minutes. The hiring manager asked why I left Hale Logistics. Family conflict. Anything we should know? Only if you plan on hiring my family. He laughed. I got the job. Vanguard was a different world. Not just bigger, sharper. No one cared that I was somebody's daughter. They cared whether a number was wrong. Numbers were kind that way. The first crisis came in my 2nd month. A port strike shut down a major shipping corridor. 3 divisions started bidding against each other for emergency freight. Costs exploded. A senior manager proposed airlifting high-margin components. I looked to the data. That won't solve it. Nobody asked me. I said it anyway. The room turned. The senior manager frowned. Excuse me, you're treating 6 supply chains like 6 problems. They are 6 problems. No, they're 1 bottleneck. I walked to the screen. My hand shook. Not fear, habit. I rearranged the map. Different ports, rail capacity, dormant warehouse contract, regional trucking. If we consolidate procurement under 1 emergency command, shift 2 product lines west, and we open the Stockton distribution agreement, you cut the delay by 40%. Silence. The manager said, that agreement expired. It has an automatic reinstatement clause. How do you know? I read it. He stared. The plan worked. Nobody applauded. Good companies don't applaud people for doing their job. But 3 days later, Julian Vale walked into our analyst bullpen. His vision had fully returned months after the fire. I knew that. I had seen photographs. Seeing him in person was different. He was taller than I remembered, or maybe I had been half-conscious on pavement the last time. He stopped beside my desk. Nora Vance, I looked up. Yes. You found Stockton? I found a clause. Same thing. He held out his hand. I hesitated, then shook it. His fingers tightened. For 1 second his expression changed. Something about touch, memory. Then it vanished. Good work. He walked away. I stared at my hand for the rest of the afternoon. I did not feel romance. I felt anger. He had built a life with my sister because he believed a story too easily. That wasn't a crime. It wasn't admirable either. Over the next 3 years I climbed analyst, senior analyst, operations strategy, vice president, chief operating officer, not because Julian favored me, because I was good. I became the person executives called when decisions crossed departments, ports, manufacturing, vendor concentration, compliance, currency exposure, labor disruptions. I understood systems because my whole childhood had been a system designed to use me. Every failure has a load path. Every lie has a dependency. Find the dependency. You find control. Julian trusted me. That bothered him. He admitted it once during a flight to Singapore. You make me uncomfortable. I looked up from my laptop. Why? Because I don't know what you want. At work, in general, does it matter? It usually does. I closed the laptop. I want clean systems, competent people, and contracts that don't explode later. He smiled. That's not what I mean. I knew. He had begun looking at me too long, not romantically at first. Curiously, he noticed the way I avoided open flames. He noticed I hated charity guileless. He noticed I used lavender soap. That one nearly broke everything. We were in an elevator after a 14-hour negotiation. He breathed in, then looked at me. What? Nothing. No, say it. He frowned. He smelled familiar. My heart slammed. That's usually what soap does. He laughed. I did not. Chloe visited Vanguard often. She wore couture, ordered staff around. Says dash main Jules in public and did not recognize me. The first time she saw me, she stared at my scar, then looked away too quickly. Julian, is this your new operations woman? I answered, I'm the COO. She blinked. Oh, then smiled. Polite. I had spent years thinking recognition would hurt. It didn't. Her failure to recognize me was worse. She had erased me so completely that a scarred woman standing 3 feet away could be her sister and still register only as staff. My parents' logistics company became more dependent on Vanguard during those years. Hale Logistics had won 2 major supply contracts after Chloe married Julian. Convenient, profitable, dangerous. On my 3rd year as COO, Hale handled nearly 40% of Vanguard's regional freight in 3 sectors. Too much concentration. I flagged it. Julian agreed. We should diversify. Yes. Chloe found out. She called my office. First time ever. At Nora, I think you're misunderstanding the relationship. Relationship between Vanguard and Hale. I understand it perfectly. My parents built that company. Then they can compete for contracts. Her voice hardened. Their family. Yeah. Yours, silence. I almost smiled. She continued, Julian values loyalty. So do I. Then act like it. I ended the call. That was the day I started buying Hale debt. Not personally, not through secret illegal schemes. Through an independent investment vehicle managed by counsel. Hale had expanded too quickly. Warehouses, fleet leases, short-term borrowing. They assumed Vanguard would renew forever. Banks assumed the same. When rates rose and 2 unrelated customers left, Hale became vulnerable. Their debt started trading at a discount. I bought a small position. Then more. Not to destroy them yet. To understand them, the files were ugly. Personal guarantees, cross-collateralized asset, a warehouse pledged twice through different structures. Aggressive revenue assumptions. Father had built a company that looked solid from the outside and panic from the inside. Familiar. Then came the fire footage. I hired a licensed digital forensics firm to examine evidence connected to the original venue, working through attorneys and lawful discovery. The old security server had been damaged in the fire. Most recordings were corrupted. But archived maintenance backups existed. Months of work produced one useful camera angle, the west corridor. Chloe running away. Me entering. Me leaving with Julian. I watched once, then twice. On the 3rd viewing, the analyst paused. This more, what? Metadata references a deleted communications cache from the building's contractor network that led to subpoenas, then old device backups, then messages. My parents, a contractor, a plan, thought to burn the whole building, a staged incident. Small smoke event, temporary alarm failure. Chloe alarm failure. Chloe placed near Julian. Heroic rescue. Billionaire gratitude. Marriage. Her father had written, once he believes she saved him, the family connection takes care of itself. From another, Chloe won't go in if it's too dangerous. Dad then makes sure it isn't. The fire spread faster than planned. Chloe ran. I went in. My parents did not abandon the plan. They changed the heroine. They stole me. I sat in my office after reading the messages. No tears, not yet. Then, one more message appeared. Sent after the fire. Dad to Mom. Nora survived. Problem. Mum, use Margaret. That one broke me. I put my head on the desk. For 5 years I had imagined the cruelty began in the hospital. It didn't. The hospital was only the adjustment. Their original plan had been Chloe. When she failed, they used my courage and controlled my silence. My grandmother had become leverage in a business transaction. I left the office, went home, turned off every light, sat on the floor. Grandma's old sentence came back. Never trust a person who puts a $sign next to a human being. My parents had done exactly that. To Julian, to Chloe, to me, to her. The federal investigation began from the recovered communications. I did not control it. Good. I was tired of families acting like power meant ownership of systems. The investigators requested records, interviewed the contractor. The contractor cooperated. Insurance files reopened. The planned, small incident became evidence of deliberate arson conspiracy. The fact that the fire grew beyond what they intended did not make the plan harmless. It made it worse. I could have waited for arrests. I chose one public correction first. Not because public humiliation is justice, because my family had turned a lie into capital. Chloe's marriage, hair contracts, speaking engagements, magazine profiles, a foundation, the lie had stakeholders, so the truth needed witnesses. The Vanguard succession gala gave me the room. Julian was formally taking control after his father retired. Though he expected to be presented as the new public face beside him, my parents expected contract renewals. I expected evidence. I also prepared my exit. That part mattered. By then Julian had feelings for me. He never said love. He didn't need to. He started inventing reasons for late meetings, started asking if I ever took vacations, started remembering my coffee order. One night after a board dinner, he said if circumstances were different, I stopped walking. What circumstances? He looked toward the car where Chloe waited. I stared at him. Don't. He closed his eyes. You're right. Yes. He never said it again, but I knew, and I knew something else. If the truth came out, the room would try to make the story romantic. The blind billionaire discovers his real savior. He leaves the fake wife. He chooses the scarred heroine. People love symmetry. I didn't. I had saved Julian because he was trapped in a fire. That was enough. I didn't owe him romance because I was brave. He didn't owe me marriage because he had been deceived. My life did not need to become compensation. So I wrote my resignation letter before the gala. I also finalized the Hale restructuring. The investment vehicle holding their debt had become senior enough to force a lawful refinancing after covenant breaches. Not a magical takeover. A real one. Creditors, terms, voting rights, collateral. My father had signed everything. People sign terrible contracts when they assume family connections make consequences impossible. Grandma would have enjoyed that. The gala began at 7. At 7:30, Chloe gave interviews. A reporter asked about the fire. She smiled. I don't talk about it often. Lie. It was instinct. Lie. Love makes you brave. I turned off the monitor. At 8:15, Julian gave his speech. At 8:21, the footage played. Now, standing on stage again, I watched my father stare at the messages on the screen. He shouted, "You stole private communications." Our attorney stepped forward. No. They were obtained through lawful process and authenticated for an active investigation. Dad looked around. The room was already turning against him. He knew rooms. He could feel capital moving. My mother walked toward me, Tona. I looked at her. She was crying. You don't understand. I laughed. I understand everything. We were trying to secure Chloe's future. With arson, it wasn't supposed to spread. A murmur moved through the room. My father's face went grey. Evelyn, shut up. She froze. The microphones caught it. Every phone in the room caught it. Julian looked at them. You planned the fire. Dad stepped forward. Julian, listen to me. No. That one word shook him more than shouting. Julian turned toward Chloe. Did you know? She cried. No. I watched her face. I knew her. She knew part of it, not all. This, I knew her. She knew part of it, not all. The investigators had evidence. She knew the fire was supposed to create a rescue opportunity. She had not known how it would be started. She had agreed to be nearby. Then ran when danger became real. She whispered. Mon said it would just be smoke. Julian stepped back as if she had struck him. There it was. Truth does not need a dramatic soundtrack. Sometimes it only needs one honest sentence from a frightened liar. Chloe reached for him. He moved away. Then he looked at me. His eyes moved to my scars. Nora. I hated the softness in his voice, not because it was cruel, because it threatened to make the story about what he felt. It wasn't. He came closer. I remember the jacket. I said nothing. The smell. Nothing. Your hand? He swallowed. You saved me. Yes, his eyes filled. I married, you married the person you believed. He'd have stunned. You're defending me. No. I stepped closer. You were manipulated. He nodded. But you also never asked enough questions. That hurt. Good. Blood punishment. Accuracy. I was blind. Then silence. Not for 5 years. His face changed. I continued. You loved the story of Chloe because it was convenient. Beautiful woman. Heroic wife. Perfect narrative. Nora, don't turn me into the next version, he stared. I reached into my jacket and took out the resignation letter. His eyes dropped. No, yes, I need you. The sentence made me almost laugh. Everyone needed me when their system started breaking. My family. Hill Logistics. Vanguard. Julian, need is not love. And love is not ownership. I placed the letter against his chest. He took it automatically. I didn't save you for love, Julian. The ballroom went quiet again. I saved you because you were trapped, and I could move. His eyes closed. I turned toward Chloe, and I am not exposing her because I want your place. Chloe stared. I don't want your marriage. Her mouth trembled. I don't want your name. I looked at my parents, and I don't want theirs. My father laughed bitterly. You think you can walk away after this? I looked at him. Actually, I already did. His phone began ringing. Then my mother's. Then 3 men at their table. Hale Logistics. The refinancing notices had executed 30 minutes earlier, after lenders confirmed covenant breaches. My father looked at the screen, his face drained. What did you do? Nothing you didn't sign. He read. Senior debt acceleration, restructuring, collateral control, like board review. His hand shook. No. I smiled. Grandma had been right. Contracts, remember. You built your company on the assumption Vanguard would always protect you. I glanced at Chloe. That assumption just expired. Federal agents entered through the side doors. Nobody applauded, thank God. Real arrests are not entertainment. They identified my parents. Then Chloe. She turned white. Me? An agent explained she was being detained for questioning and charged later based on evidence tied to conspiracy and fraud. My mother started screaming. Dad demanded counsel. Chloe looked at Julian. Help me. He did not move. Then she looked at me. For 1 second, I saw my little sister. The girl who used to steal my sweaters. The girl who cried when Grandma scolded her. The girl, before starters, became oxygen. Nora, I said nothing. She whispered, I'm sorry. I believed she was sorry. That did not make her safe. Agents took them away. The ballroom stayed frozen. Julian still held my resignation letter. He looked at me. Where will you go? I almost laughed. People who have always belonged somewhere assume leaving requires a destination. I'll decide. He reached for my hand, stopped before touching. Good. I'm sorry. I nodded. That was all. No forgiveness scene. No kiss. No promise. I walked out. The night air was cold. My shoulder hurt. My scar pulled near my jaw. I stood on the steps of the Vanguard estate and breathed. For the first time in years, nobody was waiting for me to fix their life. It felt strange. Then good. The legal cases took time. Always. While my parents eventually faced serious arson, conspiracy, fraud, blackmail, and financial charges, the contractor's testimony mattered. The authenticated messages mattered more. Father's threat regarding Grandma became part of the coercion case once hospital records and witnesses confirmed he controlled her private care. My mother cooperated late. She admitted they used Margaret's treatment as leverage. That confession nearly made me sick. Not because I needed proof, because part of me still wanted one corner of her to be a mother. Chloe's case was different. She had not started the fire. She had knowingly agreed to participate in the fake rescue setup. She had accepted my identity after the fire. She had repeated the lie for years. She had benefited financially. She faced conspiracy and fraud-related charges along with civil claims. Her marriage to Julian ended quietly. Not in the ballroom. Months later. He did not ask me to replace her. Good. Pay Logistics entered court-supervised restructuring. My investment group acquired major assets through creditor approval. I did not throw every employee onto the street. That would have made my revenge somebody else's unemployment. We sold non-essential property, replaced management, protected viable warehouses, kept drivers working. My father lost control. My mother lost the house. Creditors took the rest. People online calls it annihilation. I calls it restructuring. 3 weeks after the gala, Julian came to my apartment. We did not bring flowers. Smart. I opened the door but did not invite him in. He looked tired. No security? They're downstairs. He nodded. I deserve that. This isn't about what you deserve. He swallowed. I came to say thank you For what? The truth. I leaned against the doorframe. You didn't need to come, I know. He looked at my scar, then away. Better. I also wanted to say. He stopped. I waited. I think I loved the person I thought Chloe was. Probably. And I think some part of me. He looked uncomfortable. Wanted you to become the correction. I stared. At least he was honest. I won't. Become your good. He nodded. Then, I am sorry I didn't see you. I looked at him. Which time? His face tightened. All of them. That answer was better than I expected. Not enough, but better. I said, you were blind during the fire. I know. You were blind after. He nodded. No defense. That mattered. Then he left. We never became lovers. Years later we became something harder. Respectful. Distant. Occasionally cooperative. He learned not every meaningful relationship had to become possession. So did I. I used my hail-debt profits and the Vanguard equity compensation to start Fan Systems. Not a $1 trillion empire overnight. A logistics, intelligence, and infrastructure company. I hired people who had spent years being called support staff while doing executive work. Women whose names disappeared from presentations. Analysts whose bosses took credit. Operations people who fixed disasters and never got photographed. I knew the type. We built slowly, then faster. Within 6 years, Van Systems managed supply networks across 3 continents. By year 10, we were one of Vanguard's largest competitors and partners. That contradiction pleased me. Julian sat across from me at a negotiation once. He smiled. You're enjoying this immensely. You're charging too much. Then build it yourself. And he laughed. We signed anyway. My scars stayed. I stopped covering them, not as inspiration, not as branding, because scars were hot. Sometimes a young employee stared. I stared back until they looked away. Grandma's memory became part of the company in a quieter way. Our ethics policy began with one sentence: people are not line items. No founder portrait, no marble quote, just the sentence on page 1 of every management handbook. When I bought my first home, I put her photograph in the kitchen, not the former one, the one where she was laughing with oxygen tubing under her nose and frosting on her cheek. She had been alive, funny, sharp, impatient, not a hostage. That distinction took years to reclaim. One winter evening, I received a package from Chloe. No return address. Inside was the emerald bracelet she had worn at a gala, my grandmother's. I had not known she had it. There was a note. I don't expect forgiveness. I shouldn't have taken this too. I held the bracelet for a long time, then put it beside Grandma's photograph. I did not write back. Some apologies are useful even when they do not reopen a door. My father wrote letters from prison. I never opened them. My mother wrote one. I did. She said we thought we were protecting Chloe's future. I read the sentence 3 times, then laughed. Not because it was funny, because after everything, she still did not understand. Protection does not require another person's destruction. I burned the letter, carefully, in a metal bowl outside. Fire no longer owned me either. Years after the gala, I was invited to speak at an operations conference. The moderator introduced me with a dramatic version of the fire story. Scarred executive, stolen identity, public reckoning. I let her finish. Then I walked to the podium. That's not the most important thing that happens to me. The room quieted. The most important thing was learning that being useful is not the same as being valued. I looked across the audience. Some of you are carrying entire companies while somebody else gets called visionary. A few people laughed. Others didn't. Don't confuse being needed with being respected. That sentence came from my own life, not Grandma. Mine. Afterward, a young woman waited near the stage. She had a clipboard, operations badge, no executive title. She said, my boss takes credit for everything I do. I smiled. What are you going to do? She looked scared. I don't know. Good. She blinked. Good. It means you're still deciding. I handed her my card. Decide with information. She laughed. So I shouldn't burn the place down. Definitely not. We hired her 2 months later. People still ask me whether exposing Chloe felt satisfying. Yes, for about 30 seconds. Then grief came back. Grandma was still dead. My face still hurt when winter was dry. My parents were still my parents. Julian had still lived 5 years inside a lie built from my body. Revenge does not rebuild the original structure. It only ends the person who keeps damaging it. The real satisfaction came later. A quiet apartment, my own company, contracts with my name on them, a scar I no longer covered, a calendar nobody else controlled, the ability to say no without checking who might lose oxygen because of it. That was freedom. One evening, nearly 12 years after the fire, I stood on the roof of Ant Systems headquarters. Not because powerful people need rooftops. Because the building had a small employee garden up there and nobody else was around. The city lights spread below. My phone buzzed. A Vanguard message, routine. I ignored it. Then another message appeared from an unknown number. A photograph. The old charity hall. Renovated. Reopened. A memorial plaque had been added near the west corridor. For the first responders and civilians risked their lives and risked their lives during the fire. No names. Good. I didn't need one. The person who sent the picture wrote, "Thought you should see this. Julian." I typed back, "Looks better without smoke." He replied, "Still too many candles." I laughed, then put the phone away. Wind touched the scar along my neck. For years, I thought the worst thing my family stole was credit. Then I thought it was my face. Then Grandma. Then time. The truth is, they tried to steal authorship. The right to decide what my life meant. Hero, ugly sister, useful daughter, silent victim, secret savior, corporate weapon. All labels other people wanted because labels make a person easier to own. I stopped accepting them. I saved Julian because I was human. I stayed silent because I loved my grandmother. I exposed Chloe because the lie had become a weapon. I dismantled my parents' company because they had built it on coercion and dependency. I left Vanguard because I did not want gratitude to become another cage. And I built Van Systems because I wanted something that belonged to no stolen identity. The fire scar remained. So did the shoulder pain. So did grief. But nothing underneath me was borrowed anymore. No name, no role, no future. Mine, all of it. And that was worth more than being remembered as anyone's savior.